Hello and welcome to the Free Outside Show. Today we are talking to Matt Kirk. So Matt, he set the record on the Appalachian Trail. Make sure you say that correctly. Back in 2013, he did it self-supported. So it's kind of fun to chat with him as he set the bar under 60 days at the time. And, since there's been like, who's going to get it under 50 days? And then now the talk is who's going to get it under 40 days. So it's fun to chat with him about how he's seen the progression since he's had the record and kind of what he thought of it leading in and why the record stood for so long before him as well. And I think it's just a really good perspective. He's a great ultra runner as well. He's won Umstead among other races and set a number of other FKTs. You can check out his FKT page, but it's a fun chat regarding like changes in technology, how things have been adapted, or both like the burden of proof and justification of FKTs and that kind of thing over time, and just kind of where the line is with technology. I think really late in the interview, or more of a conversation, we really hit on some of that stuff, which I think is really fun and interesting just to get a perspective that has been following FKTs for 20 years versus me, who's like 10 years. So yeah, I think it's really important to acknowledge the history of these things. And even when you do look at a record that maybe was 30 days slower 40 years ago, but it's like at that moment in time, given what they had, given the circumstances and the gear, like the trail circumstances, the businesses on the trail, resupply situations and stuff, that was the fastest time at that moment the fastest known time at that moment in history. And I think it's cool to think of things like that, is that maybe the record's broken and it's lowered, but it just becomes the fastest point in history at that time. And it can just move forward as they build on each other. It's almost like Roger Bannister in the mile, like he gets all the credit, but so many people came after him and, have been faster for the last 50 years. But it's that moment in time, it was the fastest and it broke a barrier. And I think there's so many things with these FKTs that maybe they're micro barriers, but breaking 60 or breaking 55, or just as it's lowered, it's like this new baseline to think of. And it's all standing on the shoulders of giants from who came up with the term, who started tracking these things, and something to measure ourselves against and find the limit and push ourselves to that level. So I think it's really important to acknowledge, hear about, and internalize and build on the history of the past, because without it, we are just alone, soulless, lifeless, floating in the present with no tie to what came before us. Wow, could this be a history lesson that our whole country could listen up to? Possibly, if you don't, if you don't know anything, if you don't know nothing about history, you're doomed to repeat it. Probably George Washington or somebody said that. Okay, let's get to the episode with Matt Kirk. Here he is. You've nailed it.
Awesome. This is my first go, so yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of hit on, we can kind of work backwards, but where I'm at is in the post-hike depression phase. Did you feel the same phase and low point after your FKT 2013?
Yeah, absolutely. I just remember, so I was greeted by friends and family at Springer. It was a small group, but it was really meaningful, and it was kind of like this, joyous occasion. And Jen and Brew were there, and I ended up actually getting to stay at their place because I was kind of in this transitional stage, as I'm sure you can relate to. And so I was in Asheville, staying at their house while they were away. And I just remember like wandering around in Asheville, like going to the Ingles supermarket and just like staring at things in the aisle, and like just in this daze, like wondering, like, like, what am I doing here? Like just feeling out of place, coming back to, I guess, what you call the real world or whatever. And the body is still like, trying to get back into a groove with just repair itself. And I just remember having difficulty walking, and the body was like pretty beat up. And I can only imagine like what yours felt like, because you hiked it that much faster, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a weird transition too, because you go to every moment matters or efficiency and everything. And then it's like, I could go to the store 4 times today if I want. Like
Right.
everything just
Yeah.
doesn't seem to matter as much as it did on the trail where you just had to nail it or
Right.
be bleeding time.
Yeah, you're on this time crunch and it's really stressful. I don't think I felt nearly as much stress as you did because I was luxuriating a little bit more on the trail, if you could call it that. Like I had daylight to spare on many occasion, which was nice. It kind of brought parity to like my previous through hikes. This was my third through hike of the AT, and so it felt like a through hike. I can't imagine. See, like I still can't like wrap my brain around a sub 50 self-supported uh, journey. I mean, that to me, like, even in my prime, like 10 years ago or so, whenever that was, I didn't have that, like, even in my wildest dreams of thinking that that was possible. I knew I could have probably brought it down lower. But yeah, sub 60 was like the mantra from the get go for my hike. And so I kind of like stuck to that. And I was just trying to work my problem that I was trying to work through. The biggest mistake that I made was, as I mentioned earlier, like the caloric
Mhm.
miscalculation, and that was really a blunder that could have been a game ender for sure. But you just kind of troubleshoot that and adjust and try to make the most of it.
Was that because you planned to eat too few calories and just didn't realize that was gonna be an issue, or what how did you decide on 3,500 calories?
Man, it's not like it was my first rodeo. I mean, like that kind of distance for sure, like, was new to me. I was kind of building up to it, but I had done some multi-day fast packing
Mhm.
excursions. I did the Benton MacKay in 2009, and that was like really like an eye-opening event for me. Like, hey, I really like this. I think I could build on this. And then I went out and in 2011 did the Mountains to Sea Trail, and that was a faster journey. It was probably about 38 miles per day, so that's about what I averaged on the AT. And that trail, as you probably are aware, is a lot of pavement pounding in the middle, like as you go through the Piedmont and towards the coast. So that's faster. It's not nearly as much elevation gain and stuff, so you can make miles pretty easily with that. Plus, I had some support along the way towards the end because I was just kind of like, whatever. I mean, this is just like, I'm not really doing this for an FKT. I'm just kind of like personal challenge to just see if I could do it in a month. And I had a month off to do it, and just felt like a fun thing to do. So I welcomed the support as it came, and was grateful for it. And so it was hard for me to gauge maybe during that journey, like how many calories I was actually consuming, because I was getting some support, and I wasn't. Yeah, I was just kind of really pretty laid back about it. But then in 2012, I did a loop hike that I had come up with, this route that incorporates the Appalachian Trail, the Benton MacKay Trail, the Bartram Trail. I'm sorry, not the Benton MacKay Trail. It's the Bartram Trail, the Foothills Trail, the Mountains to Sea Trail, the AT, like through the Smokies. It just like kind of loops it all back around, and start finish like in Brevard or wherever you like along that route. And it's about almost 400 miles long. And I did that about at pace for the AT. So it was like a fast pack, like a 10-day fast pack. And I carried about the same amount that I decided on for my mail drops in 2013. And I was living in Brevard. My, day job was as a school teacher, eighth grade science teacher. And on the weekends, I'd just go out and train in the backyard. We had a great backyard there in Pisgah National Forest, like hundreds of miles of trails to train on. And I'd go out and just be like a weekend warrior and, log like, 50 to 80-mile weekends and come back. And, but that was bad because like it gave me this false sense of like, hey, yeah, I can live off of 3,500 to 4,000 calories on this journey and be okay. But I didn't like deplete my reserves on these short trips. Even the 10-day, probably I was still okay. Although I feel like there was definitely a low point towards the end where not my finest hour, but I would like literally like had to beg for food from this person on the trail, and he gave me like a Lara bar or something like that, which might have saved my
Yeah.
life. But yeah.
Yeah. How does it feel, looking at doing the record like 12 years ago versus today, is it sort of feel like with it being lower there, you could have aimed at a lower, faster mark, or that there's more technology now or better gear? How does it kind of sit in your mind as far as how it's changed?
Ever since Joey Camps came along in 2014, it just blew my mind. Like
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of this guy, and he just, he had all these struggles, and I think it was like his first time on the trail, and he was just like jumping right into it. And I think, and he was keeping a blog like while he went. I remember like reading this thing. It was like, how in the world is this guy, doing all this? And it just like, I think from that moment on, and then all of the subsequent records, were just like, I realized, wow, like humans can rise to the occasion, and like we can overcome like these boundaries, and we're very resourceful, and
Mhm.
so like yeah, the bar just kind of creeps up. Well, sometimes it jumps up there, and so like you have like these really tremendous like breakthroughs. And I think Stringbean Joe's time, that was probably the most momentous like breakthrough, because it brought parity to like the supported and self-supported records, and that was amazing to see.
And
And
he
yeah,
beat like legends too, like Scott Jurek and Carl Meltzer. Like he really proved
yes,
him
yeah,
compared to them. He was young too.
I know exactly. I remember watching some of his videos that he put together and like posts and stuff, and I thought, this guy's really naive. Like I mean, I knew he had done the PCT really fast, supported.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know if I even saw in the initial posts that he put out there that he was going for the overall. I thought he was just trying to lower the self-supported time. And then, as it dawned on me, and I guess the rest of us, or maybe he did say it and I just overlooked it, but it was like, wow, he's going to for the supported overall record in a self-supported fashion. Yeah, that was something else to watch. So
Yeah, did it feel like that just kind of reset the record on like now everyone's got to aim way higher? And then I guess Tara kind of did it again too.
right. Yeah, exactly. Like it just keeps going towards 40, like lower 40s. And again, these are, times that I can't really fathom. I was helping Jen out on her 2011 hike, and I joined her for a couple of days, which was a lot of fun. And I got a sense for like how those really long days feel like. And there was a part of me that was like, that's not as much fun, but um, like I knew with like my interest, like I wanted to definitely pursue like a self-supported,
Mhm.
um, and I had the luxury again of like the time was within my wheelhouse, and it was ripe for the picking. I mean, it was I guess you could say like a low-hanging fruit, but it was there dangling for 23 years or however long that record had been around, and I know people had tried for it. And so it was really nice to have the opportunity to go for it. But there's nothing, as I learned, like magical about the sub 60. That 60-day threshold was just like in my head. And I was thankful to get it. But then you have record attempts that are just like, yeah, put any time out of your head and just go for broke. And so I learned that is how some of you folks do it, and I'm amazed. I'm kind of
Yeah, it's
scared of
pretty
that
fun.
philosophy, but yeah, I mean it's cool.
It is wild because it's like sub 60 and then it's sub 50 and then it's sub 40 is what people are shooting for now. It's like, where do we
Yes,
stop?
yes, I know exactly. It's amazing to watch, and yeah, just like sit back, pop the popcorn, and go for it.
How fast do you think the self-supported or the supported records could be?
I mean, shortly after I finished my hike in 2013, I was asked that question about the self-supported, and I said, I think you can get it down into the lower 50s. And honestly, like I was thinking Heather, like when I said
Mhm.
that, like when I typed that response, because she had just done the PCT self-supported time, which was like not much slower than my AT time, right? And much longer trail. And so I was thinking that she, would be like a prime candidate, like then and there to come along, which she
Mhm.
did, and like dropped it down to like 54. So and that was kind of right around like where I thought, yeah, like it could be in like the low 50s, but see, I'm off. So I mean, I don't know why you're asking me this question because I don't have the answer. I have no idea. I give up.
Well, I think it's important and interesting to not just look at it in a 10-year span, but even back to like Warren Doyle, like a 50-year progression of this. And I think it wouldn't jump up, or people wouldn't get to see what's possible for themselves if someone hadn't come before them and keep setting it lower. And I think a fun part of it is it invites that person that can put like a number out of their head, or even like Tara, a gender category or something. So I think
Right.
I think it is really interesting to hear kind of what the thought process was, because 2013 I was still in college. I didn't start paying attention to FKTs until around 2015. And so yeah, I'm just really curious on the time period. And did it feel like a
Sure.
pretty close knit group of people? It was pro boards days, I guess, too. So it was just, I
Right.
think
Yeah.
FKTs were very different.
Yes, they were. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I had email exchanges with Peter Backlund, and I felt,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like a close knit group for sure. And there was the pro boards, which was nice, and it's good that it's still there, and you kind of refer to it as like the old FKT site, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, have that history, which I think is important, and kind of like connect the past with the present and the future, and kind of yeah, just kind of restore like a connection there. So yeah, I'm trying to think like what to add that even like taking it further back, right? So I guess I was kind of lurking on like these trail forums, like White Blaze and stuff, and kind of seeing like what was going on in the chatter as far as the the legendary Ward Leonard, and like what was accomplished in 1990. And it was all like a tall tale. Like I had first heard about it when I was very impressionable in 2001. How old were you then?
11 years old. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So like basically, you may or may not have been born when like Ward Leonard was doing his hike. Wow,
Not
that's
quite. I was
amazing.
almost
No, wow.
born. Almost
Wow,
born.
that's amazing. Wow, that's cool. I was 9 years old, so I wasn't that old. But yeah, I mean, I had like the AT was not on my radar until yeah, like later high school, early college, and I got into it, and then I did my first through hike when I was 20 years old in 2001. And while I was out there, that's when I first heard like these like murmurings of like, oh yeah, there was somebody who through hiked it in less than, or like right at 2 months. And it's like, how is that possible? Because here I am like with this 40-pound pack, and it's like early February, and like I've got pots and pans probably clanging around back there, and I'm thinking like that's impossible. So I mean, you just kind of like learn to accept that it's not impossible, and you just have to like rise to the occasion. And so that was, yeah, the seed was planted back then. And
What are some of
I
the
yeah,
legends of his hike, or that through hike in 1990?
I wish I had more information to share with you. Like it's still kind of a mystery to me. I mean, I had heard some things, and I have a copy of David Horton's book, and he wrote a book, an account of his supported AT record that came, I think, the year after in 1991. And I think while he was training, or maybe during that actual attempt, he ran across Ward Leonard, and in typical Horton fashion, he was like, "I'm going to beat your record," and like um,
Yeah.
there's like a picture of him, I think, in that book, and that's the only like picture I've seen of Ward Leonard. And yeah, I mean, he looked like your regular hiker. He had, well, from back then, right? Like he had boots on,
Yeah.
he had a pretty big backpack, and that was like a lot of the flack that I got was like, you didn't, do it in like jeans and boots, and like I don't know, like whatever. And
You didn't
so,
pretend it was the Oregon Trail. Come on. Yeah. Man, so
but
you
yeah.
did get flack for your style.
Oh yeah, so I gotta like pass the flack on. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
um,
I'm ready.
No, I don't have any flag. I mean, I feel like the only thing that I kind of am like self-conscious about is like, oh, like I do like care about the record a little bit, obviously like when we come along and we put
Mhm.
so much time and energy into it, like, and you're like, okay, you want to like cultivate that and, pass it on and like, make sure that it's like in good hands and everything. And one of the things was, I was kind of starting from scratch because again, there was just like these tall tales. There wasn't much information out there. I knew what the number was. It was 60.5 days, right? And
Okay.
I knew it was
Yeah.
the trail. And I knew that I had to do it as a thru hiker, like with a backpack. And so I had to look elsewhere for like guidelines. And so what I drew upon was the guidelines that were drafted by Scott Williamson in 2009 for the PCT.
Hmm.
So when they did that as a self-supported, uh, and I think they got the overall time back then too, they had a list of like guidelines that they were following. And one of the guidelines that stuck with me that I brought to the AT was to not get into a car. So I kind of brought that over to the AT, self-supported. And speaking of flack, I remember that like that kind of generated some flack, like, oh no, hitchhiking is a part of like Appalachian Trail culture, and I was just trying to like eliminate these variables that were
Hmm.
pretty easy to eliminate to maybe, I don't know, level the playing field. I don't know if that's the right phrase to use with that. But I was just thinking, if we can get rid of the complexities of like getting in a vehicle, that sounds great. Like, and you can there's so many places to resupply along the trail that it's not a
Absolutely.
major inconvenience. And if they can do it on the PCT, then it's not an issue on the AT. So I was happy to see that like that guideline, because like we kind of set these guidelines like really fundamentally for ourselves. Like this is like, hike your
Hmm.
own hike sort of thing. So like this is kind of how I approached it. It was like, okay, I'm going to go after a sub 60 day like through hike in a self-supported fashion, and these are this is how I define self-supported. It's not necessarily like exactly how the FKT site defines it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing there that says that you can't get into a vehicle for a
Hmm.
self-supported record. Am I correct with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's different by trail too is the
Right,
tricky thing, because I know it's preserved
exactly.
on the PCT, but and then there's media stuff surrounding it too. So it's only gotten more complicated since
Oh
Scott's
yeah.
new defined rules. Because now you can't have media people shooting you on unsupported or self-supported either. So yeah, it's
Oh, that's news to
yeah,
me. Is that like on both trails?
on
Or like
all trails,
all trails?
any
No
self-supported
media.
record.
No media.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that is news to me. All right, I didn't realize that. And that's like from like the Champagne Gate or whatever issue that.
Um, it's actually from we shot a film on the Colorado Trail actually, and they decided there was too much gray area with support and stuff like that along the way, so they banned it after
Okay.
that.
Okay. All
So
right. So you're the rule breaker. No, I'm just kidding. Or the
I'm
rule
the
setter, I should
the
say. The,
trendsetter. Yeah.
the trends are, yeah, I think we all leave a imprint on that, and that's interesting. That's news to me. Yeah. And I guess I would support that because, again, you're just trying to eliminate those variables that you can that are not going to be too imposing upon the actual attempt. I guess that would be fair. So
Yeah,
is
and
that how
this
you
kind of
feel?
leads to yeah, I think it's so yeah, where I'm going is I think that simplicity is what should be preserved in some sense while also being able to validate you did what you say you did, but I think
Sure.
that's a hard thing um, in a lot of respects as far as tracking, but at least on the media or a film crew out there, I think that's an easy way to set up a rule that preserves some simplicity and yeah, just eliminates, I think, maybe a factor that they'd have to look into or something when validating something like this. I think everything is so tricky. And I wanted to get into, you wrote
Sure.
a good blog post on like
Yeah.
technology or, and that kind of aspect on the greater scale. So let's start with, how did you track and verify your record in 2013?
So it wasn't that long ago. There were GPS trackers, and I had
I know I had one in
played around.
2011. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
in Spot.
2011. Yeah, 2011. I played around with some spot trackers. I borrowed one from a friend on I'm trying to think. It was probably the loop that I had mentioned earlier. That was like 400
Okay.
miles long, and I thought like, oh man, do I really want to carry this brick of a device? I mean, obviously back then, trackers were not required for these attempts, but one of the guidelines that I adopted probably from Scott Williamson and then on the PCT was like, yeah, we want to honestly and thoroughly document the attempt, of course. And so like the question became, well, how best to do this with like being a gram weenie and minimizing my pack weight and complications with technology and stuff. Because even back then, and I mean, it's just gotten more and more ridiculous as like the tech creep has come in, and like we've got, more and more gadgetry that like we feel as though we need. Back then, it was just a flip phone, and you could probably still find those sub 60 AT YouTube videos out there that are like really grainy, like filmed on a potato, and they're 30 seconds long, because that I figured out really quickly was like the maximum file size that I could send via text my buddy Adam, who like uploaded on a delay to YouTube. And that system worked out pretty well, because like I knew that in those 30 seconds I was going to have to share like vital data on how the
Mhm.
hike was progressing, like my daily mileage, where I stopped the previous night, what day it was, maybe share like how I'm feeling. Of course, like you might be able to make out like with the limited pixels like what I look like, and which is probably saved by the limited pixels on the ugly picture that you might see. But basically, like, yeah, I mean, just convey a little bit of the experience like while going along through there. So it's somewhat timely. I mean, it's on a delay for safety reasons, as
Okay.
you know. And um and that was kind of like the chosen route for documentation. And then afterwards, when my hike was done, I made sure to share the like compilation of all of that in a spreadsheet to, I posted it, I don't know where. I mean, Pro Boards? No, I don't know. Like somewhere out there,
Yeah.
probably on White Blaze, on the blog, just trying to like put it out there for people to see. Like, this is like what we have, or this is what I have for documentation on what I did. So I did not have a track map. I think it would have been cool to definitely have
Mhm.
that data. But I had just chosen that I wanted like one less gizmo to have to fumble around with. So, but man, did I really enjoy your track map. I thought that was so cool. Like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's kind of the bulk of the post you wrote too. Is it's really cool that I got to have such a cool track map, but I mean, it was like the biggest source of
An
my
inconvenience.
anxiety and stress too.
I hear you. Yeah, I felt really bad. I think like, so well, the first and foremost, like just like to get the technical stuff out of the way. Fun fact, and you probably knew this already, but in 2017, Joey Camps was making his return to the AT, and I was helping him out a little bit with the tracking, because we'd been playing around a little bit with an idea for setting up like an automated delay. Corsa didn't exist back then. I mean, it was ripe for
It's just
coming along,
yeah,
and yeah.
it's
And
barely
so like what
existed. Yeah.
yeah, Luke, devised a great solution for you and whoever else, I guess, to come along, and who wants to like have kind of like their waypoints a little less obvious, like when you exactly were at where you were. And so we had to kind of like, in my not so tech savvy way, come work around the problem with like these like, they still exist. It's like, I'm trying to think what the name of this website was, but poor Joey, he was like a guinea pig for this thing, because he had like a spot trace that were like, oh yeah, take the Spot Trace. It's really good on battery. And I think it gave him a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress too, because he was trying to like keep his track map going, and I think it was giving him some trouble. And we're trying to have like this thing post on the delay. It was not nearly as sophisticated and cool as Corsa did with yours. But I will say that like I don't think you need like a ping every hour. I mean, I think that we could
Yeah.
probably bump it back by quite a lot and save battery and maybe save stress on that. I mean, I'm very impressed by how thorough of a track it was, but that was like above and beyond maybe what it needed to be. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I realize that now, but I didn't. Yeah, I have tracked some stuff with just like a watch and used a spot in the past, but I don't. When I go on a casual thing, I don't really take a lot of technology, so it was a lot of a big learning experience on how much battery, how to charge things, the priority of stuff, and
How
yeah, it
many
was tough. 'Cause,
power banks? How many power banks did you go through? Because like when I heard like, oh,
yeah,
I shipped myself another power bank, it's like, wow, like that's yeah,
I know, it's like the worst part of the trip is because you don't wanna spend the time to charge every town at this point either, because then
right,
you're bleeding
exactly.
time. So it's probably twelve power banks that have been passed on to hikers in the hiker box.
And these are like substantial ones, like 10,000 milliamp hours or whatever, like pretty big.
10 to 20,000 depending on how big of a stretch.
Holy
Yeah.
cow! So those are bricks too. So I mean, like, how much was your weight of just the tech itself? Like
Probably a pound, probably 20% of my base weight was technology.
yeah, wow,
If you throw in the
yeah.
headlamps, for sure, yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, okay, and that's the other thing is like, you need that nightlight because you're logging such long hours. So, I mean, that's a necessary evil, but I feel like yeah, we could probably, for future records like cut back on like the energy consumption for the tracking. As cool as it was, but I think like you raised the bar maybe like into the stratosphere as far as like documentation with the tracking, and I think that's almost above and beyond like what
Oh, yeah.
is probably reasonable for a self-supported attempt. But there again, you did it. I mean, so boom, there it is.
Yeah, what was it like from the other side of the computer? Was it, would you just log in and click on the dot, see where I was? Would you reconnect to your own time in that area? Yeah, what was it like on your end?
It was cool. It was cool. I enjoyed the interaction, especially like with Luke, who's kind of like developing it as we were going along, and gave him some feedback on the data that he was putting out there, and had some recommendations for making it kind of more interactive. And yeah, definitely had some memories, like drew some memories. I think I wrote in that blog post about the technology how I didn't really start binge watching. You had me hooked at Shenandoah because I had a similar situation through there. That's a really difficult, tricky spot. Like when you're going, well, I guess north or south, but you have limited resupply options, and the
Uh-huh.
fact that that's where you had a trashed mail drop is like I felt for you. Like I was just like, oh man, that's gonna be really tough. So, yeah, that was like the crux. Would you say that was, well, maybe one of the crux moments?
Yeah, one of the crux. I think it's funny though too because a lot of thru hikers have gotten messages or questions like there's a lot of places to resupply if you hitchhike around there, but there's not if you're going straight through. And I think that confused a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah.
why didn't you go to Waynesboro? It's like, well, I'm sticking to the trail for the most part. So
Right.
it's not,
Waynesboro's
I'm
a,
not.
a long haul. And then like the Afton Gap, I just remember like
Mhm.
that just being like this ghost town. Reading in the guidebook that I had, which I had the AWOL guide.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you remember, and I think it had mentioned that there was like a popcorn stand or something like that out there, or maybe it was like like memory was serving me incorrectly, and I was thinking back to like a previous hike, and I was just like fantasizing on this like resupply at Afton Gap that didn't materialize, and so yeah, I mean, I just like was super pumped to find a soda machine that like barely accepted my dollar bills because they were all crinkled up and stuff. And it was just like it was like a stressful, because I was running on fumes even back then. And I knew that it was going to be a long haul to Daleville. And so when I saw you kind of going into that stretch with like your gas station resupply, and I was just like, okay, Godspeed, Jeff. Like you can make this. And I mean, it made it more real. Cause like, honestly, like I watched it through Maine, and then it was just kind of like tuned you out a little bit. I don't know. Like it kind of went into a little like, okay, Jeff's still on the trail. Good for him. Like that's awesome. But like I
Yeah.
wasn't hooked. I mean, yeah, it's a long trail. So it's like, there
Uh-huh.
were many, many hours of pings that went kind of unnoticed by me. But yeah, when you got into, yeah, I saw you past midway. I was like, oh yeah, he's got this. He's got this. This is looking good. And yeah, but then
I
it
think I was
became
still
like,
pretty
yeah.
far behind at the midway point. I had a lot of ground to make up, I think.
Okay, yeah, memories maybe not serving me, and it's like, okay, it's only 2 weeks ago that you finished, or something like that. So, yes, okay, that's right. Yeah, but I still had faith that like you could probably pull it out. Like I thought like, okay, the South is faster,
Hmm.
but man, doesn't that just make you respect Joe's time all the more? Because it's just like, wow, what in the world, Because I knew you were cranking it, and I set up that Google map just to kind of compare more of like Joe's splits with yours
Hmm.
against yours, and just kind of like reversed them, flipped them so they were southbound elapsed time. It
Yeah.
wasn't like perfect, but just seeing like, okay, it was like this yo-yo effect, because you all had different stop uh, periods. So
Okay.
like you'd be closing in on him, you get like within 9 hours, and then it would be stretched back out to like 20 hours behind. And it was just like back and forth, back and forth. And I was just thinking, well, and I know I'm not the only one who was thinking, well, he's a fast closer because he's got like this experience, like all this experience with like 250-mile trail races. So, maybe he's just saving up for like a big finish. And I think I even came up with like this hypothetical scenario where, Jeff could maybe even break 45 days. Like if he just doesn't sleep since like the Smokies and just like goes nonstop. But, we have to factor in that you are human and you do need sleep. And like, yeah, I mean, you're not a robot completely. So, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. At that point, like you're pretty amazing. So I thought, like, well, maybe, but
Well, the same things are going through my head too, of like, 45 days. If I just like sleep 30 minutes a night for the next week, maybe I can do it. And I mean, they're not
wow.
probably going to happen, but in your mind, you're like, I'm having a really good couple hours. Maybe I can do this. And then, you have a
And
low
then you
point
go
and it's
into
like,
a pit of
yeah.
despair, like this roller coaster, like all the time. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I can only
Did you have
imagine.
the same type of highs and lows out there on your
Probably not nearly as
thing?
pronounced as you, but I think that that's very natural to happen. And yes, I mean, you have a lot of time alone in your head. And so like, and I really appreciated your videos. Like you gave some good advice. Like I think that, people who tuned into that, as far as like kind of maintaining your mental health out there, and because that's really important. So like, not beating up on yourself, and just kind of like trying to level it all out, and like, try to not be as up and down, so that,
Mhm.
like even if the terrain is up and down, like you can kind of try to stabilize it in your own mind and within yourself, to make that experience more sustainable. And that's a really awesome practice just for life in general. And so, I mean, this is like a microcosm of life. Like it's a flashpoint, but like, you take those lessons with you, like off of the trail. And so you're talking about like coming off of the trail and like readjusting and stuff. And like, sometimes we have to like, our anchor is our trail experience. Like, like, okay, I
Yeah.
made it on the trail. I can make it here, and, so yeah, I don't know. I just kind of got on a tangent
What kind
there.
of strategies did you use on your well, you've also won like Umstead and stuff too, so you're a pretty good runner, right?
Once upon a time, yeah,
Yeah. So what
I
kind of
was,
strategies have you used through the years?
um, it's a good question. I don't know. So I enjoy just being out in nature and,
Mhm.
the being kind of grounded, within nature on the trails, on these long trails. I think it's like, this term forest bathing kind of entered my
Yeah.
radar screen. I didn't really know what the heck that is, but I think that's what we do, like we're
Mhm.
bathing in the forest, like when we're through hiking. And so, yeah, I think that, that like helps to kind of, bring like peace to me, like, being out there and I just like, yeah, I don't know. It's like a meditative state,
Mhm.
um, that I can kind of get into while I'm out there, which is nice. And the miles can kind of just glide right by. And, it's a great experience. And I know you know that. So yeah.
Yeah. So what happens when you're low on food, you're hungry, your feet hurt, but you're 40 days into the Appalachian Trail FKT? How are you staying positive and pushing? What's your strategy when things are piled against you and it's hard to force bathe?
Oh, sure. Well, I came up with this idea of like, okay, I've got some carrots that are dangling. That something to look forward to, small goals.
Hmm.
Most of the time they're based around food, right? So I'm going to get to this hostel that I just noticed is in my guidebook that I wasn't planning on stopping at, but they have pizza and other goodies that I can load up on and resupply with, and so that all of a sudden becomes like a really exciting thing to look forward to for that day to kind of draw me through. And yeah, just kind of thinking ahead to like the next, whatever it is and also it might be, it's not always food related, but most of the time it is. But you could be like thinking about, okay, we're coming up to the Roans and these are,
Hmm.
beautiful mountains, a lot of memories out here. Can't wait to like, go over, Hump Mountain and yeah, go into the spruce and kind of reconnect with these like special places along the trail, which are highlights as well. So you just kind of like find these things to look forward to kind of pull you through these low points, and that's what has worked for me. I mean, it's also not worked. I've definitely had like points where I've not been able to crawl out of like the pit of despair and ended up with a DNF or whatnot. So it's not like a foolproof thing, but you try the best you can.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good like visualization too of like you're putting this thing out there that's going to pull you through this, yeah, maybe pit of despair or something, and you just pull yourself out of it by that hope or whatever's on the other side of like that meal or that view or whatever it may be. I think that's similar to what I do. I don't know. It's hard to even remember. I think I'm just blocked a lot out. Good thing I have a bunch of notes in my phone.
That's awesome. So like, yeah, you kept like a kind of a personal journal, like in your phone, like while you went along.
Yeah, journal would be an overstatement, but it would be like
Okay,
10 to 15 bullet points a day of things that happened and could just
nice.
quickly jot down like saw a porcupine or something happened. And
Yeah.
um, I think that just makes it fun and able to retell the story in my mind, like anchor points to each day almost versus like if I just didn't write down anything, I wouldn't remember half of the days out there. I think they can blend together pretty easily.
Well, I definitely encourage you to write those things down. And I wasn't like
Totally.
planning to write a book. But there came a time, and it was like maybe like 2 years out from my hike, and I just like thought, wow, like I need to, start putting some of these things down, these experiences, and not every day is like going to be as memorable as the other one. But I started with, uh, the ones that like really jumped out to me, and like talking about like porcupines. I remember
Yeah.
coming, crossing into New Hampshire from Maine, and I just had like this really like I was on this high. This was like one of those moments where just got out of Maine, and it took a little over a week. And I was really pleased with my progress at that point because I felt really good. Maine is amazing. It's an
Hmm.
incredible state. It was kind of like starting with the dessert, right? And I was just like, like like, this is awesome. I can't believe I'm going to be spending the rest of my summer doing this.
Uh-huh.
And I was feeling good, right? Like the despair was a long ways away. And it had gotten dark, and I was coming into Gorham to my hostel that I was going to be staying at that night, and I had a mail drop there, so I was looking forward to that. And I knew I was going to be getting there pretty late, and so I got my flip phone out, handy flip phone technology, and I called the proprietor of the hostel up and just, told him like, hey, I'm running a little late, but I'm still coming. And he's like, we'll have the light on for you on the back porch. We'll be up. And that was like really reassuring to hear that, and to know that they were okay with me coming in as late as I did. And as I was coming down the mountain in the dark, yeah, I saw like at least one, maybe multiple porcupines, which was cool because like I don't
Yeah.
see too many porcupines. So that was a cool wildlife encounter. And then started to see the lights of like civilization kind of coming into view, and
Mhm.
it reminded me of like these late night like traverses when I've paced friends out at Hard Rock. I'm thinking of like coming into Uray like at night or something like that, like just kind of coming out of the canyon like down into this town. And so I was like kind of having these flashbacks to like previous adventures, like even like Fontana Dam, like when doing the
Sure.
Scar and stuff. And so it was like kind of just bringing back these like really poignant memories like while I'm coming in. And then I get there, and the proprietor of the hostel's there, and he's like, I can put a couple pizzas in the oven or the microwave for you or whatever. And I was like, that sounds amazing. He's like, we got Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I was like, oh my God. And he's like, you can just leave your stuff out here, like we'll take care of it, and like you can get a hot shower. And it's just like icing on the cake for an incredible day. And yeah, very rugged trail, but it just provides for you. It just like, yeah. And so anyway, so yeah, I can, go into these like stories of the experience, and I wanted to capture that in writing. So I started like with stories about that, and like, other days that kind of stuck in my mind. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try to like, try to get all of these days down. And again, some of the days are not that great, like as far as like most memorable, but I'm glad I sat down and went through the process, because it proved to be a meaningful process for me to like
Yeah, I
record
think
that.
the reflection is a huge part of it because it just sits alone by itself because it's hard to relate to in day-to-day life of I think that reflection is so valuable and warranted because that's where you connect it back to real life of I don't know, like a porcupine or a moose or something like that of like, oh yeah, I remember that feeling I got when I saw that. And then, you could have that feeling in real life, or else it just feels like a through hike is like summer camp or something totally unrelated to your day-to-day existence.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So how did you get into the sport? I'm curious. Into the greater sport of ultra running, FKTs, through hiking.
So probably through backpacking. I ran cross country in high school, but I wasn't very serious about it. I joke about how like I hid in bushes like during workouts and stuff, because I just didn't like the pain of training. And then no surprise, I was junior varsity like pretty much all the way. But when I got to college, I started running kind of for myself and discovered trail running. But it really was for like building up and training for like backpacking, because that was like what I was really interested in. And so when I scratched that itch of through hike, I kind of circled back. And I was also like very interested in climbing. I like not technical climbing, but got an opportunity
Mhm.
to climb some 14ers out in Colorado, and it's like, yeah, this is awesome. Like I love climbing. I love backpacking, would love to do like long distance hikes. And so like the running was kind of training for that. And then it just kind of led naturally into ultra running, from like doing 30-mile days on the AT in 2001. And hey, that's like not too bad. Like maybe what we can do is try to run this entire trail, which is only 30 miles long, thinking of like the Art Loeb Trail. And so
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing that for this is going to be the 25th year actually that like I've done that traverse like on or near the winter solstice. And so that's kind of like the first ultra, I guess. It was just like one of an adventure run. It wasn't an official ultra. That came later. I think my first official ultra was like 2002, the Mount Mitchell Challenge. But yeah, I mean, just kind of connecting it with like the background of backpacking and hiking and enjoying like being,
Mm-hmm.
on the trails, moving quickly, efficiently with minimal gear. So yeah, ultra running was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of paired really nicely with that. But it didn't happen like right away, like the fusion of fast packing. I tried fast packing with the gear, like, and most of the gear that I use is, I mean, even to this day is probably homemade or somewhat modified. Just that's kind of like the way I chose to kind of do it. And so I remember I had like this pretty simple rucksack that I decided to try fast packing. That loop that I told you about, like the first attempt at
Mm-hmm.
that was in 2004. And so I took a little time off. I was still in school and I took a little time from college, like extended fall break to try to do this thing. And I failed at it. But it was a good learning experience for sure. I got about not quite halfway, and I had to hitchhike from basically like Fontana Dam back to Brevard where I had left the car. And so that was an adventure for sure. But my feet were just like torn up, and I carried too much gear. The gear that I carried was kind of flopping around, so I didn't really have it dialed in yet with like appropriate fast pack gear, and my feet were definitely not ready for like the tenderizer that was the parkway, because a lot of the Mountains to Sea Trail through that section had yet to be built. So I had to like road run for a while down to
Oof.
the Smokies, and those were some, yeah, it was like a long sustained descent, and I just, yeah, like my feet were pretty mangled. So I was limping when I got to Fontana and just ready to call it quits at that point. So,
Okay. And then it looks like you got more immersed into ultra running first and then kind of came over to FKTs, or how did that go?
so yeah, like, um, at some point or another, and it was probably around 2004, 2003 even, we started doing routes. I'm saying we, like some friends here in North Carolina who were ultra runners. We kind of started looking at these like, routes that stood out to us and were almost more intriguing than the organized races,
Mm-hmm.
such as the Smokies Challenge Adventure Run, which was the SCAR, which was like the little acronym that I came up with for that. And we were not the first to do this. In fact, there's like a long legacy of that route, with previous runners who had done it in astounding times. But the original challenge for that was like, let's do it in 24 hours. So when that got done in 2003, it was like, okay, now what? And so then it came up with SCAR V2, which was the Shenandoah traverse. So do like the Shenandoah National Park,
Mm-hmm.
as a traverse. And it just kind of like built upon that. So like sections of trail or like whole trails like the Art Loeb Trail, and just and trying to see like how fast you could move across it. And then like basically what we're talking about is FKTs. The term FKT did not yet exist as far as I am aware. Like I don't know when that came along, but that kind of just entered in as like the appropriate term, or the most popular term for what we were doing, I guess, was like records, like, for these
Mm-hmm.
trails. And um so yeah, and then let's see, like what were some of the other ones that like jump out to me? Like the Foothills Trail was one
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of pursued, and I think there's like a quite a following for that one. And I think
Oh yeah.
Mark Lundblad still has the time on that one, so that needs to get taken down. That's been up for a little too long. So maybe you can head out there and knock that one out, although
Not
it's a little too short for you. So
Yeah, not anytime soon. I'm taking some time off.
sure, yeah,
So
understandable.
you name the scar. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's a well-known think it's a premier route too.
Yeah,
So
it's a great route. In fact, I was disappointed to hear from your recon how the trail status is not looking too good through there. And I've heard from other reports that unfortunately, yeah, the national parks are hurting these days, and so that's unfortunate because love the Smokies. Was actually hoping to get out there. I don't know. I've got to this is like my pie in the sky. Like one of the things is I'd love to do, and you've inspired me because I'm like, well, like let's just think about let's channel Jeff's energy here and maybe go for it and try to do like an unsupported double scar and just like put it out there. I would love to try that at some point. It scares
yeah.
me, it terrifies me, but maybe one of these days, like I'll work up the courage to do that.
Okay. Yeah. You've announced it here. Now you just have to pick your day and go for it.
Uh, yeah, I've got a little more like prep work to do for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel underappreciated just with bringing the record down after so long and being a part of the sport and being
No, I don't feel
successful on
underappreciated. No, I mean, I think I've had like more than my share of the limelight. In fact, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing and awkward, like, the attention that my hike garnered. Um, And yeah, I mean, I'm super grateful for the attention that it got, and I think it definitely did inspire like some amazing attempts that came
Mhm.
afterwards, and that's really exciting to watch. And so yeah, I'm just grateful to be a part of the history. And no, I don't feel underappreciated at all. Like I do feel as though like it's important to like give homage to like that's why like I
Yeah.
like name drop Ward Leonard and just kind of like yeah, like there's this thread that's like all connected, and one of the ways that connects it is the record keeping. And so that's kind of like my major like push on this is like let's keep an account of like what's done so other people can draw upon that and grow from that. And so I appreciate like everything that you put out there because I think, and I said that in my posts, and like I've said that like with like the like entries that I put on Corsa is that I thought like you were top notch with the documentation as far as I saw. Like that was excellent and above and beyond,
You
right? Like we,
you said too good on the
yeah,
documentation.
too good, right? But I mean, like
Throwing it
now you got to
down.
sit down and like write it out. I mean, like not like don't do anything that you don't like want to do. I mean, definitely do it for you because that's like, this is really like your personal journey. But whatever you want to share, I just know that there's interested people that want to like, draw that experience from you and learn from it. And so, I mean, you've already shared enough probably that needs to be out there. So, don't feel obligated to share anymore, but yeah, like there are a lot of interested people to learn more about your hike for sure. And I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of questions do you have? Let's get a couple in here.
Okay. Well, let's see. So, I mean, and these are like, oh gosh, like I'm just thinking like from the logistics standpoint, and I could
Mhm.
probably, you've probably already answered these questions, so these are probably dumb questions, but like the number of mail
They're
drops
great
that you did,
questions.
oh, they're great
I think it
questions.
was,
Okay.
yeah, they're great ones. I think it was 18. It was right around 17 or 18.
Okay.
Almost everything except for 2, I believe is, and they were buying just like a day's worth of food.
And how much? Like how
Just like
many?
a all my buying, resupplies were just like buying a day or 2 worth of food, so pretty quick in and out.
Okay. Gotcha. Excellent. And then you answered the battery pack question, which was like another one
Yeah.
that I had was just like logistics.
I
And
do
then
hate
let's
that aspect because I like self-supported that it feels like a more attainable or, achievable goal for someone at varying financial levels in life, but,
right.
yeah, when you
Yeah.
add in, like, battery packs, tracker, subscription, it's like, That's like $500 to $1,000 worth of added expense in some of these things.
Right. There's like a certain kind of sense of like aesthetic that you want to uphold. And I think one of those things is the accessibility of it. And
Yeah.
like, I like the fact that, and I think you had mentioned this, in maybe one of your videos, like after the hike, that you felt as though like, living on the trail is cheaper than living off of the trail, which is very much true. Um, Even with the power bank budget as
Mhm.
it is. So that's a great, that's like the freedom part of it that we like to uphold is like having this, like, yeah, you can move fast, light, and free, and have that freedom of like not being bogged down with like monetary, uh, logistics, all of that. And then kind of furthermore with that, I guess like the one of the burning questions is like, so technology has crept in more and more. And as we've expressed, like it's a little unwelcome to a certain extent, but it's kind of here to stay. And we have to kind of accept that. But like, where do we draw the line? And where do you draw the line as far as like with technology? Because I don't, when I wrote out those guidelines, or copied and pasted the guidelines rather, like from Scott Williamson and them, is talking about like, prearranged support, and this idea of like, okay, well, we have to separate self-supported from supported, but the line kind of gets blurred when you have like a computer in your pocket that where you can
Mhm.
like call upon like outside support at any time. And it's different because like there's still connectivity issues and it's remote support. So it's not like somebody's there to, feed you and bring you food and everything. That much is true. But is there a line to cross like with the technology, and like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the pretty obvious level, I think there's a pretty big safety thing as like it grows and explodes in popularity and people's desire to share and get the limelight or the spotlight while they're out there on these things of like people meeting up, or I don't know, there's so many stories of like weird encounters on the AT and stuff. So that's the number one thing with technology. And then the second thing is it's still like everything it was designed to be, like this escape from all the metropolitan areas around it and the ability to kind of be on this path that just magically travels 2,200 miles. I think technology really impedes on that when um, yeah, you can just distract yourself from the fact that you're in that like
Yeah.
historic place and real. So yeah, I think it just creates more of maybe a gap in or a breadth in like the variability and the adventure someone could have. Like they could be
My
playing heavy metal music the whole time or something.
here's my question to you. And I know you're like a blur, like passing by, but you had some interactions out there. And like my fear, because I've been removed from, the through hiking scene for, I guess it's 12 years now. And it was kind of a blur to me too, because like our hikes were kind of atypical in the fact that they were faster paced than your typical through hike. But I want my kids. I've got two boys, and one of my dreams is like to take them out and get
Mhm.
them. I mean, we do overnight trips on the AT already, which is great. But I was like thinking, okay, yeah, maybe we can do like a section hike here in the near future and stuff. And like, I'm terrified of this idea that like people are like going to like hiking and they're like get to a shelter and it's like Netflix and chill and you got like all this like technology there. Did you like see like a lot of technology creep like with the other hikers that you interacted with out there, or it was just too fast, like little interaction?
Well, over the last decade, I definitely have. There's a lot of like watching TV series in your tent at night and stuff like that. So a
Yeah.
lot of that is lost. I think I've seen it. I spend a lot more time out west, but especially with like fire bans and stuff, which really we need to do. But that was like a very social thing when I first through hiked the PCT. Is
Yeah,
you'd
around
have
the
a
fire.
fire and
Yeah.
yeah, so you almost need like a manufactured safe fire or some.
like a
gathering
fake
spot. But
fire. Yeah. You can make like
yeah,
hey, there you go. There's a marketing opportunity right there. Like make like a LED like fire pit or something that's like ultralight that you can with like
how about
flames.
like a headlamp where if you put four of them together, it like becomes a transformer like a fire. So you have to have like four
Whoa.
people joined together with these headlamps, and
Nice.
then you
Hey,
have
that's
your
like
gathering
Voltron,
spot.
actually. I think you're describing Voltron. That's cool. And then like that's so marketable because yeah.
Because you
Okay.
like
I can
have
see
to
that.
be friends with the other people out there to
That's
get
right.
their
They
headlamps.
join
Yeah.
together. And yeah, nice. But then you need a power bank to power it all. So you
Back to square one. Dang.
oh man, who brings the power bank? Well, oh well. You could
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh
you gotta like flip a coin for who has to use their power to charge everything.
but you saved from like a potential fire, so it's all good. Well,
Yeah.
my thought process, my recent like thought process that I shared with my family was that like we're gonna do like a screen-free trip and we're gonna take it old school. Like I'm gonna show my kids like what a 35 millimeter like disposable camera is. Like if they still make those, I'm
Uh-huh.
sure they do. And like we're gonna go out there and they're gonna want to see the picture that I just took, and I'm gonna like disappoint them. I'm gonna turn it around and it's just like a piece of cardboard. But yeah, we'll have that. Like the phone, like we'll have a phone because oh my gosh, we have to cannot leave it behind, but it will be powered off and it'll be at the bottom of the pack and it never goes on unless there's an emergency or I need to like Netflix and chill. Like I mean, that's the thing is like, are we going to be able to like break free of this? Like I don't know. My wife pointed out to me, she's just like, yeah, you've been on your phone a lot today. I was like, well, I'm watching Jeff Garmire, okay? Like, leave me alone. Like, his
Man,
ping is about to come up, okay? It's like 58 minutes. Like, it's going to be the next one. I got to make sure he's still on track. No. But
I created a lot of
yeah,
screen addiction, I guess.
yeah, thanks, Jeff. I need a power bank over here. Um,
Yeah. No
yeah,
kidding.
but I do think that would be good. Like a screen-free outing and just like, try to get back to the roots of it. And I like your idea of like, without starting a forest fire, like, yeah, bring it back to like the campfire and let's go primitive here. But yeah, like there is a need for technology. It's just that, the documentation part, we check that box.
Hmm.
Now it's more a question of, because again, and I just kind of like get into it a little bit. That box was not always checked. I feel like, and I'm biased here, but I feel like I checked the box, right? And,
Hmm.
we're hoping that like subsequent efforts, and I think the FKT site has made it pretty mandatory to check that box with the documentation now. So it's kind of like a moot point. But there was like this kind of, um, uh, growing pains stage where it was just like, okay, maybe name recognition can get you this FKT, and there's not really public data available for your hike, which I
Hmm.
don't think is good either. And then we saw like, okay, I think there was a claim in there, at least one, where it was like found out later that it was kind of a bogus claim, when you're tracking the
Yeah.
AT. So it's like, okay, we have to learn from that. But again, that's a moot point because I think, we've learned from that. We've moved on. We've checked that box. But my concern, all jokes aside from, just being like addicted to screens is more like addiction to like other, support that they can bring and comfort and I don't know. I mean, I feel like we lose something, just like we lose like that campfire camaraderie. We lose a little bit of the self-sufficiency, the solitary element of self-supported treks potentially with more and more technology. And so I don't know. I feel like there's a line that hasn't necessarily
Hmm.
been crossed yet, but I'm just putting it out there. Like, where is it? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also diminishing creativity. Like we would get to on my first through hike, which was in 2011, we'd get to where we're camping as a group and we'd like make up a game. We played basically horseshoes with the baskets of our trekking poles. We'd, swim in a lake or, hang around or chat or play word games or something. And that
Yeah.
was just really fun, camaraderie, social, creative. I don't even know where my phone was during the whole thing, probably just in my pack where it always was. But
Yeah.
I feel like we're losing some of that is my real fear. And I think, yeah, FKTs were pretty covered on documentation and stuff, but even the greater through hiking world, it's just missing out because it's not just the nature, the green tunnel, or the view from Katahdin or anything. It's really just getting to interact with people on the most organic way possible. And I think
Yeah.
technology is getting in the way of that. So in one sense, I think we
Absolutely.
might have crossed the line.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everybody has to kind of figure out like where their limit is and like what they want to get from the experience. But yeah, that's an interesting thing to explore and unpack and just be aware of. And yeah, I mean, I don't like being the one that's like trying to be the enforcer of rules or like trying to write out these guidelines or stuff. I think that my time for that has passed. Like I kind of drew like some connection with one of like if I had a regret, like one of the things that I wish I did a better job because there was no better opportunity than in 2013 when it was kind of like, all right, we're hitting the reset button on this thing because it's been 23 years and who
Mhm.
knows like what really like went down in 1990, but we have some stories, some accounts of it, but we're not going back to 1990, just like we're not going back to 2013. But I mean, 2013 is closer to now than 2013 was to 1990. And one of the
Yeah.
things that I could have probably done a better job with that is still around and is questionable is like the trail magic thing, right? Like how much trail magic did you get on your hike?
I got some through maybe Vermont, and then it was suddenly none because once the northbounders were past me, so I probably
Yeah.
had 500 miles of trail magic. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I mean that's just a natural organic part of the experience. So
Hmm.
like on one hand, it's like, well, we shouldn't necessarily say like no trail magic, right? And again, we write our own rules like to a certain extent and
Hmm.
the FKT guidelines are not going to be so stringent on that. But I do think like, you can set a precedent. I think the window is closing because it's just getting faster and faster and but there again, like maybe you're going so fast you can't even stop for trail magic because you're going so fast. But yeah, like I was thinking about that. I was like, well, trail magic is kind of like hitchhiking, like it's either there or it's not there. And you may have a
Hmm.
ride or you may not have a ride. Just like you kind of hit a dry spell. Like I had trail magic a lot longer, further south because I was earlier in the season. I was moving
Hmm.
slower. So in that respect, I got luckier and that kind of kept me going to a certain extent. I mean, um, I don't think my hike would have been like eliminated without trail magic. I think that, it did help. Like it minimized to a certain extent, the stress, like for some of the caloric, struggles that I was going through, but I didn't get enough to, supplement fully for the trek. But I'm thinking too, like, trail magic is not just calories. It's also sometimes like manifested as like gear, like, oh, you need a headlamp, like, hey man, oh, that's really amazing, like what you're doing. This wasn't like prearranged or
Hmm.
pre-planned, but like, hey man, we want to support you. Like we have nothing but love for you. Like this is trail magic. We're a trail angel. Like let's give you a
Hmm.
headlamp. And is that across the line? I don't know. I mean, I'm just like asking these questions. Like, and everybody has to kind of set their own standard to a certain extent. I just feel as though like being like upfront and like transparent about it is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, totally. So do you have a trail name?
So back in the day, in 2001, I went by Sweeper, and that was because I had a wood stove, and so I would have grime all over. Just I wouldn't realize it, but like I'd get like, grime on my face and look like a chimney sweeper or whatever.
That's
I got rid of
awesome. I
the
love that.
yeah, I got rid
I
of
love that.
the wood stove, and then I guess I got rid of the trail name. But
Oh
I
man.
kept that for a while. I guess it could have other connotations, but in 2007, I was Matt and U-Dog because I was hiking with my dog, Uwari, and she was a great companion, and that was an incredible experience. And that, if I had to rank the hikes, I think 2007 is probably the pinnacle of all of them. Each one, like 2001, 2007, 2013, each one of those AT through hikes was incredible experience and very different from one another. But I mean, how can you beat like hiking with your dog and then meeting your wife on the trail? So I mean,
Yeah.
I think Lily would be remiss if I didn't throw that in with the dog. So like, I'm gonna make sure that I mention
Yeah.
that met up
Why
with
don't
her
you
out there.
why don't you close us out with what's the story of you meeting your wife on the AT?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So 2007. So my wife and I, we were pen pals. No romantic interest in one another, but we had met first while building trails in Tennessee on the Cumberland with Cumberland
Mm-hmm.
Big Dig out in Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, and we went our separate ways from there and just kind of swapped letters. I went and worked for the South Carolina State Park Service as a ranger at Caesar's Head State Park, and she went to work for the Mississippi Teacher Corps for a couple years. And when I got done, it was kind of like, the grass is always greener. I had the dog. I was house sitting on top of this mountain at like 3,000 feet, right at the state line near Brevard, North Carolina. Things were good. I mean, I was a park ranger. My job was to like go maintain trails, but I had like, wanderlust, and I, put everything, like gave a lot of the stuff away. Like, car got stored over my parents' house, and my dog and we hiked from Caesar's Head State Park northbound on the AT.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to leaving, I got a letter from Lily who said like she was planning after she got done with Mississippi Teacher Corps to through hike the AT as well. And she was going to do a flip flop. And it was like the most serendipitous thing because I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And like, we may overlap just from the timing of it because you'll get done with school and you'll be starting like at Davenport Water Gap, heading north. And so the idea kind of was like floated that like maybe we can meet up on the trail. Who knows? There's a couple where there's 1,000 miles to go before that happens, but let's see.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, well, I got to Davenport Gap, and it turns out I was probably like a couple weeks ahead. And it's really hard to like slow down. I mean, I'm not trying to go fast here. This was like a 6-month hike, like all things considered. So I was like going painfully slow. Like it was like hard to go that slow. In fact, I had to like come up with like these side excursions. Stayed for a time with a friend out on Long Island with his family, which was awesome. Hiked most of the long trail just to like eat up some time in Vermont. And what I was doing was I was trying to like have like Lily catch up to me, and at some
You're just like
point, like,
crawling on the trail, just
yeah,
trying to
like
go
I'm
slow.
just laying here, like, like, but you can't stop. You got to keep moving. So I was
Yep.
just like, I'm an easy target. Like, come and get me. And it didn't seem like because she had her own excursions that she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a friend's wedding in Massachusetts, and so anyway, long story short, felt like we were not going to connect, and I think I was kind of a little bit down in the dumps about that. And so there I was at Manchester Center in Vermont, and I was sitting outside of a liquor store. I did not go into the liquor store, but that's like where I was when this random car drives by, and there's this bearded guy like pointing at me like, there he is. And I'm just like, who is that? And it turns out that it was a thru hiker who recognized me because we had met up at Trail Days, and he was in the car with Lily. They had come up from Williamstown, Massachusetts. They drove up to Manchester Center to try to track me down. So she was in Williamstown. So she wasn't too far behind. I mean, maybe that was like the closest that she had gotten. And they decided to drive up to try to track me down in this town, this trail town, Manchester Center. And they were just about to give up. They had gone to like the outfitter and they asked if
Wow.
I had a mail drop there. And they were like, yeah, or no, maybe it was the post office. And I don't know if this is like a breach of confidentiality, but like the postmaster was like, yeah, yeah, he already picked up his mail drop. And so, um, yeah, like they were kind of giving up, like heading out of town when the hiker identified me and was just like, there he is, that's him. And so we met up finally. She still had some miles to go. Like I think she was like still 100 miles behind. So that's like why I was like, okay, let me hike the long trail and that'll buy you time
Yeah.
to catch up to me. So we finally connected like right there at was it the main junction pretty much or close to the main junction. Like I'd kind of gotten back to the AT at that point
Hmm.
and we continued the rest of the way to Maine together and the rest is history. So
That's awesome. Wow, it's
yeah.
like you were running out of trail for her to catch you.
Right, right. Well, her trail name, and it's not necessarily because of this, but her trail name is Fast Enough. And, but I do find like, yeah, like you can have like multiple meanings for these trail names. And so like, that's always kind of stuck in my mind as like being pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for doing this. This was great.
Jeff, hey, I mean, the pleasure was all mine. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And again, like kudos and, like I am in awe of what you've done. Um, I saw your announcement and I knew vaguely of who you were, but I'm kind of like out of the loop. And I was skeptical. I was like, this guy, I don't know if he's got it, but you did it.
You and me
And
both. You and me both were thinking the same thing.
no, I mean, you must have you had some confidence going into it. I mean, you
I
had
knew
to.
I had a shot, and that's all I got to give myself is a shot. But yeah, I didn't know for sure, but I was not focusing on that aspect because it was too overwhelming.
Super inspiring. And like I said, you've maybe inspired me to do some foolish things in the future. I don't know, but nothing as foolish as what you just did.
Well, do it. I mean, the reason I did it is because I'm not getting any younger, so you might as well go after it.
Yeah, recovery does not get any faster as you get older. I'm like a decade older than you, and I'm sorry to like break the news to you, but yeah.
Dang.
But I hope that
Darn.
the rest
Yeah.
of your recovery goes smoothly and that you can get back out there. We can't wait to see what else you have to do.
It looked like you took years off after your AT record, though.
What happened was I moved to Florida. Like
Oh.
oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's like I moved down there, kind of kicking and screaming. Lily had a PhD program at UF in Gainesville, Florida,
Mhm.
and I grew to love Gainesville. It's an awesome town if you've never been, and Florida has some pretty cool stuff, but it's also super flat. And I was missing the mountains for 5 years, and I felt like I had signed like my death warrant, like when going down there. But no, no, no. Like I'm being melodramatic. I mean, again, I tried to expand my mind, change like views and perspectives, and got into like biking. And I even had an attempt at the FKT on the Florida Trail, which didn't go too well because even though it's flat, it can be pretty hard. Flatness is in a lot of ways harder than topography.
Totally. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so that was kind of like a transitional stage of life, and then kids came along. So and then that's
Yeah.
pretty much it. So like we're you know doing shorter adventures now. I've gotten into orienteering more and exploring that and enjoying that. That's kind of brought meaning to my life, and still running, but shorter stuff and trying to stay fit. And I do feel like, and I think that maybe you feel somewhat like this, that there's like this kind of this inner drive and this sense that like you have something left to give. And I don't know, maybe you don't feel that right now, but maybe it'll come back. Like you're depleted right now,
It'll
but
come back. Yeah.
yeah, like that it came back for me, like, and it's in the back of my head, and there's these things that kind of like rattle around back there that I'd like to stay fit for. So if the opportunity ever came, but again, not doing any premier routes. I'm not of that caliber, but I do enjoy pushing my limits and exploring those limits. And so I'll keep doing that as long as I can.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to the Free Outside Show. We are proudly supported by some sponsors, but also you can check out a lot of Free Outside stuff. There is merchandise. There's Fastest Known Tiger shirts, and I'm giving the proceeds to the Trevor Project. You can support the Trevor Project. That was the fundraiser that I had going all during the Appalachian Trail record, and we're over 42,000. So let's see if we can keep that thing going, because it literally saves people's lives. How else can you say that these days? So it's a good place for your money to go, and we're making a difference over there. Also, man, my beard is looking scruffy. I think I need to shave it. Let me know in the comments. Is that a thing influencers do? You can also buy my book. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/freeoutside. And we are proudly supported by John G. So I wore all John G stuff on this FKT, and it held up. The shirt had some holes in it at the end, but so did my heart and soul. So it really matched. And then the Ultra 5-inch shorts. The pockets at John G, they're notorious because they're so good. They are notorious only because they are so good. They would hold everything. They could hold 1,000 calories plus at a time. Yeah, definitely plus. Maybe 2,000 calories. Maybe I should do a video on how much my pockets are holding. But check them out. johng.com. Use code FREEOUTSIDE. Tell them I sent you, and get yourself some fleece-lined tights, maybe. That's some good stuff. And then Garage Grown Gear is a sponsor. Almost all my gear is available at Garage Grown Gear. It's a marketplace for small businesses. So one thing you can get there is I had an Enlightened Equipment 50-degree sleeping bag. Well, it was a quilt, so a convertible quilt. So it had a zipper that I could turn it more into like a half sleeping bag, like a quarter zip, a quarter zip hoodie. It was like a quarter zip sleeping bag. Very hipster. So you can get that at Garage Grown Gear. You can get any camping, backpacking, and a bunch of trail running stuff there. Check it out, even nutrition. It's a great spot. Check it out. And then CS Coffee, csinstant.coffee, premium freeze-dried instant coffee. It's like when you go backpacking, you can get the Starbucks Via that basically feel like you're just pouring acid on your teeth. Or you can get like freeze-dried coffee. It's instant coffee, but freeze-dried with premium, I believe they're Central American beans. So they're very good. Check them out. csinstant.coffee. And then just a special shout out to Mount to Coast and Ultraspire. And Ultraspire now has the fastest pack on the Appalachian Trail. So check them out. All right, that's what I got. Stay mid-America and stay elite, my friends.